Hi there. We'll be starting in a few minutes.
Sweet tea tunnel, huh?
You know it?
No, I know.
Me
Ah, thank you.
neither. Well, you know, we're live. We're being recorded. We're on YouTube,
Okay.
just by the way. It's just wait.
On YouTube too?
We're live all many places, but we're not starting the meeting until a few more people show up. So
So I'll have to talk to him off camera.
indeed. So they're setting up for graduation of
Tell you. That's a whole new world.
yeah. I mean, I graduated once from high school and one more time from college and a third time from grad school.
Yeah.
But now there's graduations every couple of years. Hi, Steve.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it started. How old are your kids?
My kids are daughter just turned 37.
Oh my gosh.
Son.
So never mind. They missed.
33.
Yeah, they missed it too.
Yeah.
We have been around for way too long.
Well, hopefully not. But
Yeah.
yeah. It's blowing my mind.
My eldest is 50.
Mm.
I mean, she's a lot older than everyone else, but yeah, I mean, her son is like 20.
So I'm going, guys, girls that went to high school and they got, 55-year-old children and great grandkids and the whole. It's time. Some.
Can we turn this off? I'm not sure where the button is. This thing that says UV. Maybe not. I don't want to. I'll take a less. Sure. It's just. What's awesome. But neither are you.
What's happening if you headphone charger in the house with it? I don't buy this.
Oh. I do not have a charger. Looks where you go. Bring it in. Oh, we have.
The old fashioned.
Let it run out and hopefully balance.
No, I was gonna put up the agenda. Do you have a printout of the agenda?
So.
That's all I need. There you go.
Okay, so missing is Siobhan, but so I think we're gonna start at 7:05. Just because the person who's leading our main discussion isn't here yet. Or as soon as she arrives, but won't wait past 7:05. And can we acknowledge that somebody can hear me when I said that? Thank you, because I'm very hoarse today. Smoke is in the air. So Apparently I'm sensitive to it. Apparently there's another. I know how you love my countdowns, but one more minute. And we'll start. Yeah, but it either goes fast or slow depending on waiting or trying to not run out the clock. Okay, well, we're gonna get started because it is 7:05. Hello, my name is Laura Myers and I am the chair of United Neighborhoods Planning and Zoning Committee. And also its president, Neighborhood Council's president. I'd like to go while I'm going to share the agenda. I'd like to have introductions. So besides me, we have.
I'm Ed Saunders. I'm a at-large member of the UNNC Council.
And live in. And you live in?
Yeah, and I live in Western Heights.
Sorry, I live in Angeles Vista. And so we'll go online. Steve Peckman.
I'm Steve Peckman, resident of Jefferson Park and vice president of the Donna Jones Fan Club.
Okay, well, that would take us to Donna Jones. If you could introduce yourself. Are you? Donna, are you here? Saw you arrive.
Hi, Donna Jones, West Adams Avenues.
Okay, and now we need DT Comer.
Hi, my name is Dennis Comer. I reside in West Adams on 21st, closest to Arlington, resident.
Thank you. Teresa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa Masonette. I live in the West Adams Avenues, and I'm a former board member with UNNC. I'm a
Thank you.
stakeholder.
Thank you very much. And we have another person coming who's about to introduce herself.
Yeah, I do.
Yes, say hello.
Hi, Siobhan O'Neill Schwig, UNNC Region Board.
I don't mean you have to talk throughout the meeting. Introduction.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, and I had to get the camera back on you.
Is that you, Dennis?
It is. Yes.
Yep, that's me.
Hi, Dennis.
Okay, so we're just reviewing the agenda. So we just did the welcome call to order, an introduction. The review of the UNNC standing rules for committee stakeholder voting participation. Kind of simple. The city council has adopted a definition of stakeholder, and that is anyone who lives, works, owns a business, is employed by a business, attends school, is the parent of a child who attends school, worships, or is otherwise participates in a nonprofit 501c3 organization which has a brick and mortar address here within our UNNC borders. I may have skipped a category or two. The way UNNC operates, for our committees, we appoint the chair or co-chairs of our various committees, but otherwise anyone who is an actual stakeholder is considered a committee member on the evening or morning, during the course of the committee meeting itself, and may not only participate in discussion, but may make a motion and may vote. So that's the affirmations. I already know each and every one of you, so I know that we are all stakeholders. On the agenda tonight is our number 2, general public comments. That would be on items which are not on tonight's agenda. Number 3, which is the main agenda item for the evening, is a follow-up to an old case number ZA 2014-4751 CU, which stands for conditional use permit. I think the agenda item is somewhat self-explanatory, but essentially the letter of determination was issued in 2016 on a 2014 case, and it had a list of conditions, and the entity is not following the conditions, and its conditional use permit does not expire for another 5 years. So we're going to be talking about that situation. It had come up in a board meeting earlier this month. So that's why we're doing that. Number 4 is follow up to previous cases, early notifications, and old business discussion and possible action, including updates regarding SB 79, which there is an update, and objective standard design standards, which I don't think there is an update, and anything else that has an update. So that is the agenda. And at the moment, we have a next scheduled meeting of this committee on Wednesday, June 6th. We meet on the first and third Wednesdays, but not every first and third Wednesday if there's no agenda items for other reasons. Do not do that. Anyway, so are there any general public comments on items not on tonight's agenda? Ed, and remember, even though I've been bad at it and didn't say this is Laura speaking,
Where's the thing at?
it's a different thing, but it
Oh,
still
okay.
says UNNC president.
Okay, this is Ed Saunders doing Western Heights. And I just wanted to put it on the record and try to get as much assistance as I can. With the situation of cars parking on the sidewalks at the corner of Cimarron and Washington. I've reported it 311. I've also to Alicia, and she's supposedly following up. But as many people who possibly go by that corner, I've taken pictures of it on a daily basis. Is
this the southwest corner?
This
So
is
where
the body shop, and they park in cars both on Washington side and the Cimarron side. So when you come to the intersection, it's difficult to see the traffic coming down Washington because you have the cars parked. There's no accident waiting to happen, in my opinion.
Okay.
Do we think that this is all related to number 3 on the agenda?
No, it is not.
No, that's unrelated. This is, well, it may be in the sense that people think that they can run their business any way they want to. Yeah, it may be related in that. Yeah, that way.
Okay, I've got other hands raised. I saw Donna's first, then Steve. I don't know if I properly saw it in the right order. Donna.
I wanted to send the captain Bergeron of DOT in the area. He's very responsive. I'm going to send the number to Steve if you can receive it and maybe put it in the chat and share it with the gentleman. He's very responsive to the area, and I think it might be worth outreach and an email.
Okay.
Steve.
I agree with Ed completely, but I wonder if this is the right venue. Isn't this more of a public safety issue for the Public Safety Committee?
You know,
What is this?
These are general public comments and
I
you're
understand,
right.
but I'm trying to help
No,
him
no,
address the
I-
issue.
You're right, or it could be economic development. I mean, it's, but I'm taking notes.
Land use. You're using public property to park their business vehicles on.
Well, you know what it is? This is
Anyway,
Laura. Yeah,
we don't need to go through that.
Yeah,
But
we know.
I just need to make a comment to put it out there for as many people who could help me with the issue, and because it's just my personal, well, it's something that's bugging me.
I agree with you 100%. It's just that it seems to me that this is something that requires the police department to address the parking issue. And that's a public safety committee.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, gotcha.
gotcha. And these were general public comments anyway, so because if we had a building and safety code enforcement committee, that would be another thing, but we do not. And that is correct that we don't really do it here, but I don't know that we do it anywhere else. It's a proper general remark. Sunmin, I will change your name again.
Hi, this is Sunmin Lee. Dawn, I'm going to put your corner with your traffic problem on my radar as well. So I just want you to know that I'm going to put that on my map. But this is not going to be a complaint. This is more like an opportunity, even though yesterday it was more of a complaint. But I'm looking at the banner again, at the tattered UNNC banner, and thinking it's actually might be a really great opportunity for messaging of any kind in the future. So I would love to know where the other tattered banners are, because I mean, hundreds of cars are driving by there and they're looking at that space. And I'm thinking that's a really great space to send the message that UNNC is active. Anyway, it was just more of a positive, like an incentive to maybe look at that as advertising space. And I was just thinking that would be, just something to just kind of put out there.
So what banner would you be referring?
Yeah, Sunmin has spotted one of our old UNNC banners, some of which are in various places still hanging, by Edge Hill and Jefferson, is that right? That's
Yes.
shredding and tattered. So it's not hanging proud, it's just hanging loosely and tattered.
Is this a street banner or is it?
Up on a light.
On a light.
stanchion.
Oh,
Yeah, we used to have banners on Exposition, on Jefferson. There's still some on Pico. They're here and there. There's one folded up on my front porch from many years ago. I'm not sure exactly where it is actually. Because once they're down, they can't go back up.
Are these where they along the street where they put symphony or show?
Yes,
Correct.
exactly,
Okay.
correct.
I would think those would be taken down and replaced with new campaigns, but maybe
You mean our campaigns or other people's?
other people's campaigns.
Yeah, so they're not usually taken down if they're still up because we have an annual motion at city council to keep them up. But many of them have come down in the wind. And the rain. over
They're
time.
not purchased outright as part of ongoing ad campaigns?
We purchased these when the UNNC budget was $50,000 a year. And that hasn't been the case for a very long time. We did.
I'd just like to interject just for 1 second, Laura.
Yeah.
Sorry, point of order that
problem.
this is public comments, but let me just say, Siobhan, you have a very good point. This would be part of an outreach effort. And I see neighborhood councils do it all the time, update their banner programs. So this might be something we should think about for the new fiscal year.
Yes, the last time we did it, it was $17,000. And we have a
Neighborhood councils do it all the time. Maybe we can work and get some funding from the council district.
possibly, that's a good idea. Because the banners that we have up, of course, the few that remain are a different, different branding. I don't know that it really matters because they're really quite beautiful. They were Art Nouveau style. I mean, they were designed in our first
We
three or
have
four.
a new branding now, you know, Raheem worked on that. We have
Yes,
beautiful
I
branding. I would say, Siobhan, that's a great idea, something to think about for the new fiscal year.
I was just thinking, I mean, I thought that all of those were bought out as part of ad campaigns for, say, the symphony or for road shows that come through here or museum projects or whatever.
play day.
And I would think that they would take, that usually what happens is they take down the old ones and they put up the new campaign and it sits there for 4 or 5 months. And then when the event is over, they take them down and something new gets put up. So it sounds like we permanently bought a set of them somewhere, specific ones.
Yes,
Okay.
I mean, the original.
But
Yes,
there, many of them are destroyed.
Right.
And it is no longer representative of who UNNC is. And this would be a great agenda item for, I guess, outreach or communications or one of those committees.
Correct. So, I'm writing it down, banner program renewed with new branding as a goal. Okay, so, as long as we are digressing from planning and zoning, and then we'll move on, I do want to just remind everybody on team members, stakeholders on this Zoom meeting that we have 2 big upcoming events that UNNC will be tabling out. One is on Sunday, June 7th, the Debbie Allen Dance Academy, or DADA, annual block party, which is on Washington Boulevard between Western and Gramercy. The streets will be closed from, I'm gonna say probably Saturday morning through Monday morning. The event is on Sunday, but we need to close Washington. So Gramercy, for those who are in Western Heights, becomes kind of a north-south throughway. As this Western, because Washington is closed. And it also becomes the illegal left turn goes away because it's the only place people can go going north on Gramercy. And then, anyway, we will have a table there and it's a full day, noon to 7 event. And then on Saturday, June 27, we are tabling at LA 84's annual play day, which will be on Adams from, the closure on Adams is from Western almost to Arlington. Might be a hard close at Cimarron and a soft close at Arlington to let residents in and out. And then at Gramercy, part of Gramercy is closed as well. And that's also an all-day thing where they close the day before Friday and don't reopen till Sunday, because it's maybe even Monday, because that's a massive, much more massive setup with games and stages, all kinds of things. And for UNNC, we will be providing active play. So we've been discussing what that means and what we're going to bring to it. But, we can't just sit there and have to do active plays. Maybe buying another thing and doing coloring and activity, painting on canvas. Anyway, and also in June, Saturday, June 6th, we will be having an emergency preparedness workshop, Saturday, June 6th, from 10 till 2 at the Gramercy Apartments, and you'll very shortly be getting emails on that. Okay. And for those who are board members or major stakeholders, all stakeholders are invited, but especially with what we want is ideally at least one person from every block in UNNC. That's not going to happen at this one meeting, needs to have this training. So if we do have an emergency, some of us know how to step up better. Everyone who takes the workshop will get a hand cranked radio that has, but it's got other stuff. It's not just radio. It's kind of a cool thing. I'm not describing it well. Teresa, do you have a better description? besides hand cranked radio?
No, that's what it is.
It is, but it has other bells and whistles. I just don't remember what they. I think it did have a light. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it has a light. I think it might be solar, has solar capacity. I don't know. A lot of,
I know you have to crank it. It's a crank. But anyway, okay, so moving on, are there any other general public comments? And if not, I'd like to move on to item 3, which again, I'm gonna pull it up. It's kind of a little easier to pull up the language on this. So, oops, I pulled up the wrong item, sorry. Stop the share. Try that again. That's what I'm trying to pull up.
It's draft follow-up letter or the agenda.
I'm trying to pull up the agenda.
Oh, okay.
And that what I did pull up was a draft follow. Okay, so this is a follow-up to an old case, and even that case has a 40-year-old precedent case, but in any case, it's case number ZA 2014-4751 CU. It's conditional use permit for the official police tow garage and towing operation. So basically, in 2014, the operator of that business had changed from a prior owner to the person who is the current owner. And he applied for, at that time, a different updated conditional use permit and for a 15-year granting period. The normal is 10 years. So from the time I moved in here in 1984, there were, once a decade, we had these public hearings, but they asked to go for 15 years instead of 10. And UNNC likely took a position on that. I mean, did take a position, but did not go to a public hearing from what I could tell from the zoning administrative notes. And they were granted a new renewed at that point conditional use permit. No, that was a new conditional use permit, and it had certain conditions. One of the conditions was that, for example, one of the conditions is that the vehicles not travel up and down the residential neighborhoods, that they stick to the main corridors. Another condition is that anything that was non-operable, any vehicle that was non-operable, could not be released directly to an owner. It had to be released to a bona fide towing operation to be towed to a body shop or towed to a mechanic, not towed around the corner for a person to work on it. And then there was a lot of similar conditions. So in any case, as you can see with the agenda item, what UNNC certainly voted not to support was, sorry, excuse me. So then 2 years ago, they, this operator purchased land that was to the east of the existing operation. So one of the things about the 2014 application and the 2016 approval was partly based on the fact that the operator had sold the land across the street, which was the lot that now the Gramercy apartment sits on. So that was the quote remote lot, and it wasn't very remote. So they had all these problems generated by the operation of the towing itself and the towing of various people's cars, normal towing operations. And they had worked out a deal with a community redevelopment agency to acquire the use of a lot or the ownership of a lot, I'm not sure, on Gage down in South LA in an industrial zone. So it was a legal use. And it was within the 10 miles that is required by the police commission, that these towing operations with the licenses with the police, as long as it's within 10 miles, they can have a remote tow lot. So what was agreed to is that their lot on Washington Boulevard would be for very expensive luxury vehicles and or vehicles that were being used in investigations. And all other vehicles would go to the remote lot. So what happened 2 years ago is that the opportunity came apparently for them to buy several more parcels on Washington Boulevard adjacent to their existing operation. They, for reasons I do not know, gave up or were kicked out of or whatever, the lot on Gage. And they moved everything up here. And then they applied for a conditional use permit to plan approval to expand their operation to include those extra lots. That's what UNNC voted not to support. But there was never a public hearing. They withdrew the application. So our letter went in, but that was the end of that. So this is now, I'm gonna almost take this off the screen. So now what's happened is that the folks in Western Heights in particular have been complaining and noticed that they are not just expanding without permission, but they are violating the terms of the original conditional use permit. One of the things in that letter stated, and this was what's on the agenda, if at any time during the period of the grant, should documented evidence be submitted showing continued violations of any of the conditions of the grant, resulting in a disruption or interference with the peaceful enjoyment of the adjoining and neighboring properties, the zoning administrator shall have the right to require the applicant to file a plan approval application together with the associated fees and to hold a public hearing to review the applicant's compliance with and the effectiveness of the conditions of the grant. So I'm going to stop the share. And the question I have at this point is, I'm going to turn it to Siobhan, because you wrote the letter. Should I put the letter up on the screen, or do you want to have a discussion first? Siobhan drafted a letter.
I went ahead and drafted a letter. I mean, you can put it up. We can have a discussion.
Well, it's hard to discuss when they can't see us.
Okay, that's fine. I guess let's start with the discussion. The letter may not be relevant for that discussion, but
I think it will be, but let's start with a little discussion.
okay.
And I do want to say, I want to address a concern that Steve had, because he's wondering, he sent me an email wondering why we can.
He's shaking his head.
I suggest we not open that up.
Okay. All right, fine. I won't. I was just gonna say, how are we dealing with an older case? We're not dealing with the older case. What we're dealing with is a condition in the older case that allows us as the community to bring a request to the zoning administrator if conditions are not being complied with.
I think Dennis has his hand raised. Dennis, you live on that block, correct?
I live on 21st.
Okay.
I live on the corner.
To Ed. So I had heard some rumblings about this, but I confess I am probably not as up on the history of it as both Dennis and Ed are. But Dennis has some history with that property specifically that might be helpful or illustrative in this discussion. So I'd like to invite Dennis to share his knowledge because I think it's unique and might help direct us.
Thank you. Okay, then Dennis.
Okay, so when we moved here in 2020 and purchased the house, my wife is a commercial baker, and we were looking at the kitchen space because we were looking for kitchen supplies that were close. So we went into Alpine kitchen space and looked around and found out that it was for sale. I talked to the broker, and the owner was looking to sell that property, and he had a price which was above our figure. We weren't interested. But then the broker a year later came back and said, hey, the owner is very flexible to purchase the property. We're like, we had other things going on. But recently, my wife reached out to, I don't know who she called, but apparently she believes she called the owner's son. And the owner's son shared that, yeah, they want to sell it, but right now they're leasing it. and they're leasing it to a gentleman who is trying to get a quote unquote city contract. So we don't know who that person is. And and what he was told was you can't, the city or the police department, whoever will not even talk to him until he gets a certificate of occupancy. And in order to get that, he has to have a zoning change. There has to be a zoning change, I guess, to expand the lot or however that is. And so that being said, the whoever the leasee is, that's where he's trying to go. So in my opinion, I'm not sure what Wilshire Towing is doing, but I think they're trying to use someone else to lease the space next door who was in the same business that way that, and he was looking for a 20-year lease. And so my take on that is, the community has to decide whether you want to take the chance of that place never being redeveloped or whatever, because once he gets a 20-year lease with the current owner, because nobody's bought it yet, I don't think we can say anything. And if somebody does buy it, they probably still have to honor that lease, which gives, I guess, Wilshire or whoever another 20 years or however long, because I assume they own their parcel and they'll just lease or work with the other person.
So I will make a little comment here. The zoning never allowed a tow of this kind of operation, even before the zoning was updated to the current zoning. So there was a long time where it was CM, commercial manufacturing, was former zoning. And that did allow things like Alpine, the kitchen supply, to operate. But commercial manufacturing is not for manufacturing. It's sort of the bridge zone between commercial and industrial. So it's more for warehousing and really light. So that's why the Wilshire Tow operation, going all the way back to 1984, had to have conditional use permits because it wasn't allowed by right in the zone. And that's why they have conditions they're supposed to operate under. The current zoning was changed in 2018 to C2-CPIO, which is an overlay. It's a kind of overlay. And the overlay does a couple of things. And one of them is that it does not allow new auto-related uses. And another of them is that it actually reverts the allowable uses to what's allowed in C 1.5. And now we're getting technical and complicated, but let me just say neither C2 nor C 1.5 is any better for a police tow yard. It's because it's not even a category of industrial. And then again, the CPIO says no new auto uses. I don't know what it would say. We never got to a hearing 2024, so we do not know what the interpretation would have been regarding an expansion of an existing auto use, because it never got answered. They withdrew the case. I think that said, back to the topic that we really have tonight, I think we do need to tell the zoning administrator that this is happening. They're violating the conditions. The expansion's only one condition, meaning one of the conditions was that they have to operate on the site plan that was attached to the letter of determination. So the site plan, the parcels are not the expanded parcels. So I was never clear, but we're not relitigating the 2024 case. I was never clear why the planning department accepted the withdrawal and didn't tell the operator that they need either a zone change or a new conditional use permit. Or maybe they told him he needs a zone change, and that's what, Dennis, that you heard, that they're trying to get a zone change, but I don't see how they would get a zone change because it's not legal to do spot zoning.
Right. I think my point is there seems to be a workaround because I guess Wilshire Tow does not own the kitchen supply place, but that place has been up for sale, and I'm sure I can call the broker right now and he would take a deal if I had that kind of money. The issue is they're using the person. There is someone leasing that space, and he is allowing the tow company to use it because he's got the lease for a couple of years. And that's
You
why
don't think it's the tow company itself leasing it? I think
I
it's
don't know.
I think it's Rick who owns the tow company who's leasing it, but I don't know that it's relevant.
Right. Well, I think what I learned was it cannot happen if the community pushes back. The community owns the last word. So if you don't have the community together, then however they make that work, they could possibly make it work. So I was more concerned on what's the community going to do to get the word out, and what does it look like? And I'm assuming it's a public hearing at some point.
And that's basically what the letter I drafted states. I give a little bit of background, I refer to the old letters, and then today, Wilshire Tow continues to operate on the additional parcels despite the limitations of the original permit. And further, for the past 2 years, they've repeatedly violating several of the existing CUP conditions, in addition to the unauthorized expansion, including specifically the condition regarding where the trucks can operate. Just like in 2024, 2 years ago, and among others that bring us back to the same issues from decades ago, our stakeholders are still reporting, and I did confirm this with my husband who walks by that site every single day. People are still making repairs to disabled vehicles on residential streets that are adjacent to the site. Salvage trucks that are awaiting transfers. They're constantly parked in the middle of Washington Boulevard. If you try to get by there any time of day or night, it's 50-50 on whether or not you're actually going to be able to pass. Wilshire tow trucks, they are monopolizing parking on Washington Boulevard. Good luck trying to park over there. They use Wilton Place as a shortcut through the neighborhood, which is dangerous for pedestrians and kids who are constantly going through there. There's tow trucks that are parked on the residential streets of Washington, of Western Heights, that are those areas that are directly south, including your block. And then there's still a weekly auction of unclaimed cars at the location on Wednesdays, still being advertised on Facebook. There's still posts there, still going on. So we object. We don't understand why this is being allowed. So we're squeaking about it. We're asking the zoning administrator to do something about it. The use is not allowed for the reasons you stated. I repeated that. The use of the property is, as near as we know, the determination letter, the conditions of that determination letter haven't changed.
Yeah, they haven't changed.
Yeah, the use of the property in the surrounding environments in its totality still constitutes public nuisance, just like it did in Paula's letter in 2024. It adversely affects the neighborhood, just as we said in 2024. It also fails to contribute meaningfully to the CPIO. In fact, it detracts from it. It creates chaos and confusion for the residents and the patrons of the businesses along the corridor, particularly for residents who have battled ongoing nuisance at that site since the 1980s. The third thing that I wanted to bring up is that a troubling practice has emerged, which is that Wilshire Tow continues ignoring community norms, zoning concerns, and laws, and operates with neither respect nor adherence to them. You know, they moved into that space before they even had a permit from the zoning authority, a conditional use permit. And maybe they were thinking they were going to beg forgiveness rather than ask permission. I don't know, but we know that they moved in before they even filed for that permit. This is just another example of them going, yeah, whatever. We're going to do what we want and nobody can touch us. Well, this is an example of what happens. And this establishes a troubling precedent to me. So I wanted to bring that up. So we request that the zoning administrator review their compliance with the conditions. And we're confident the site will be found in non-compliance, and we look forward to the administrator's faithful enforcement of its improvements. Period.
Thank you. So Ed, you have some experience to share.
Very much so. My house is right.
You're right on.
I'm right behind. The only thing that separates me from the tow yard is a brick wall. I mean, it's a brick wall that runs almost from Cimarron to Gramercy. There's a concrete brick wall that separates from the noise and everything from Washington Boulevard. Since their expansion, I'd say the noise in just the increased activity has increased. You know, there's more clanking, more movement of cars, all of that has increased. Like you mentioned that, and they use 20th Street from Gramercy down off Gramercy down 20th, turn on Cimarron, then they're on the right side of the street, to go into the tow yard. So they're using that as a way to get back to the tow yard. And so I'm constantly getting these giant, and they've increased. Yeah, they've
Big
increased.
flatbeds.
That's the thing. Since this expansion, initially they may have had maybe one or two. We see one or two of those types of trucks. Now they have a whole fleet of them that are constantly circling and going around the block and parking in, like she's saying, in the middle of Washington. It's just the whole expansion has increased, and the amount of nuisance that it, before it was tolerable, but now it's like getting outrageous, and they're just taking over the whole neighborhood, and like she's saying, setting a precedent that this guy, the guy who's running the collision place, they never did that before. They never parked their cars on the sidewalks and stuff. It's like now and then after he started doing it, the place next door to him, this guy started parking his cars out on the sidewalk. So I'm saying it's setting a
Setting
precedent and conditions that we can do whatever we want to do, and nobody's going to say anything about it.
Steve?
Well, I think, Laura, as your preamble stated, there's been a problem with this site for a number of years. I totally agree with what the neighbors want to do, but I guess I don't understand what the ask of the zoning administrator was. I didn't hear the ending very well. What's exactly the ask?
The ask is we're requesting that the zoning administrator review their compliance with the conditions. We're confident that it'll be found in non-compliance, and we look forward to the administrator's faithful enforcement of its agreements.
So,
Okay,
so
enough.
in other words, condition number 19, Steve.
I think that the ask should, I haven't finished. I think the ask should be exactly what you want the zoning administrator to determine. Not that they're out of compliance. What do you want that out of compliance to be? Do you want them to have their conditional use permit withdrawn? What is it that the neighbors actually want?
Okay, so hang on, I'm gonna share the determination letter so that we can take a look at item number 19.
I think if you leave it in the hands of the zoning administrator to make some kind of determination that you have left amorphous, you're not going to get what you want out of this.
That's fair, Steve, and I hadn't had enough conversations with everybody to find out what exactly we did want. I mean, if we can't get their if the conditional use permit is what it is, I don't know that we can get that revoked. Or is this enough to get that revoked? I don't know. But at minimum, they need to be upholding their ends, both of their ends of the conditional use permit, which, I mean, what's going on now with the constant flatbeds and the parking on sidewalks and people repairing their busted vehicles practically in Ed's driveway, those things need to stop immediately.
Right.
So,
and so the question becomes, what can the zoning administrator do about it?
Okay, Laura's trying to interrupt. We're trying to invoke condition number 19, which I think you can see on the screen. Kind of. So I'll read it out loud. But we're trying to invoke this. If at any time during the period of the grant, should documented evidence be submitted showing continued violations of any of the conditions of the grant that results in the disruption or interference with the peaceful enjoyment of the adjoining and neighboring properties, the zoning administrator shall have the right to require, in other words, tell them they have to do a plan approval application, pay the fees, and to hold a public hearing. So we're trying to invoke this.
Yeah, but if this was my neighbor, I would be invoking the final statement in this paragraph, which is, we want a nuisance abatement revocation done immediately.
Right. Well, that does require a public hearing.
I hear you, but if you don't name it, the zoning administrator won't do it.
Okay. So if we
a nuisance abatement.
I understand. So I am not 100% sure. Remember, the zoning code has changed, right? So I don't know the procedures. In the past, this kind of paragraph would trigger first one, then a second public hearing. So in other words, first a plan approval hearing where they would give them 6 months to comply with everything. And if it didn't work, then the zoning administrator would create a nuisance abatement revocation process. I will also say in the past that these were funded only for one nuisance abatement revocation per council district in a year. So I don't even know if that kind of policy and procedure is still in place all these years later, but that was the case before.
Well, I say follow what's in number 19 and
Right.
ask for what's in number 19. Don't worry about the noise, right, of anything else that may or may not be happening out there in terms of guidance or anything. This is what's baked into their permit. The permit specifically says that you could ask for a nuisance abatement revocation if the circumstances warrant it. So if you can map out what warrants that, then I suggest you ask for it.
Just ask for it now, along with the first thing, obviously.
Yeah, and then let the zoning administrator say, well, no, we have to give them 6 months. Okay, fine. Then everyone's put on warning that the neighbors want a nuisance abatement revocation. The place has to come into compliance in 6 months. And if it doesn't, then you have something to go back with to get that abatement revocation hearing done and finalized.
Steve, that's a great point. So what I'll do is I'll pull paragraph 19 and add that basically, this is what we want. We want their permit revoked based on section 19. So thank you for that. And when I drafted this, I was unclear on what we could ask for and what we wanted to ask for. So let's shoot for the moon, then maybe we fall among stars.
Right.
My
So
experience is you ask the zoning administrator for what you want and then push for that at the hearing.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you get it. And if not, you'll get something short of that, but a pathway to move forward with what you want.
Sounds good.
okay.
Dennis, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I agree with what Steve's saying, but I think what's also missing is we at the beginning of this, we had a laundry list of violations. I think every last one of those violations needs to be like maybe 20, 25 of them. They've got extra car, they're parking on it. That way he can see all the things and then the office can maybe send somebody out there and they can see the exact same thing, which gives you credibility. Just saying you want noise abatement or whatever, based on what? Based on the violation of these 30 things that happen every weekend or every week. You know, when you talk about the auction, that has to be listed out. Every last thing. The more you can put in there, the better.
Absolutely. It should be listed out and numbered.
Yep.
Title 1.
And photographed. I mean, so that's the appendix. That's not necessarily in the letter. The letter should say see attached appendix because it should be a fairly long, set of images.
And will you do a walk by with me and help me list every single one of those things? You're closer to it than I am.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we cannot visually invoke clanking of the sound. I mean, in other words, every time a car is towed in and towed, yes, I understand. So, but
He's gonna stand out on his balcony in pajamas 2 o'clock in the morning with his phone.
It's happening at
Oh, yeah.
it's
no, I'm having an idea, which is we should create, UNNC could have a Google Drive and we can upload the recordings. Or any videos and share the Google Drive link in the letter.
Yeah.
So we could do that as well, but we should also have photos,
And reference materials and.
grab stuff from the Facebook page that they're doing the auctions. I mean,
yeah, how they're blatantly violating.
right, because it does say documented, so how it's documented, evidence, I don't know. I mean, in other words, I don't know what's acceptable based on the city procedures, but we should just decide on our own that what's acceptable is all the photos. I will add for the other problem, it's not just that these big tow vehicles are sitting in the middle center lane on Washington. It sometimes makes it impossible to make the left-hand north turn. So if you're going eastbound on Washington and need to turn left on Wilk Place, particular, which anybody who lives on Gramercy north of Washington does need to turn left on Wilton Place because there's no left turn on Gramercy. So you have to turn either left on St. Andrews, meaning by going past it, or left on Wilton just to get to Gramercy. So I don't know how we need to illustrate that as a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
And Grace is telling me that they are also still double parking in front of her house on Wilton Place. In the middle there. Steve's hands up again. Well, somebody else has, oh, it's Dennis. Steve, Dennis, and
I'm going to second the idea that the documentation of the violations is critical to getting the zoning administrator to understand the circumstances. With that, I make a motion that with those modifications to your letter, that this committee support you and that it recommend to the governing board that the governing board send such a letter to the zoning administrator to address these horrible issues.
okay,
Second.
and Ed seconds. I still have Dennis's hand and then your hand up, and then
Yeah,
we'll call the question.
Yeah.
Dennis.
Yeah, I was typing in the chat, but I think there needs to be a separate piece. One of them are the violations, but I also think there needs to be safety implications of the violations as a part of the package. Like, not only do you have the violations, but separately, this is what it causes, especially during your rush hour traffic on both directions. Those cars those parking in the median, number one, is illegal. You can't do it. It's strictly for turning, and that's just pictures of us showing if you're there more than 30 seconds or a minute, 3 minutes for on the curb, then you're parking and you're not idling and all that kind of stuff. So that's already a violation, but it's a safety issue during rush hour traffic in both directions. I cannot see because it's blocking.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, I'm only focused on me trying to get home, but you're right. If you were traveling westbound on Washington and needing to turn left on Cimarron, it would be a little bit difficult more than a little bit difficult as well, because yeah.
Dennis and Ed, do you guys have a couple of recommendations for residents that I could talk to? I'll call Grace, I have her number, but I'll need some help building out the documentation. I'd like to try to get this done and handled. I know we have a holiday weekend here, but I'd like to get this done and handled in the next week or so I can get that to you guys for a board meeting. Our next
June 4th.
June 4th. Okay, and I'm gonna be gone all of next week, so I'd like to try to get this done before I leave on Monday. But
we need to try, this is Laura speaking. I think we need to try to have an appendix put together by June 4th that I don't necessarily, at minimum, if we just had images, I could create a PowerPoint.
Okay.
To show the rest of the board what we're talking about, even if that isn't the final actual appendix.
Okay.
I just had a question, and we don't need to go into it. This is Ed Saunders speaking. We don't need to go into a whole long debate on it. I was just curious, in this presentation, and maybe I just flew by me, are we mentioning the fact that they did the expansion illegally, in my opinion, without regards to what the neighbors and or the law was stating?
Well, I want to say that shouldn't be the whole crux of it.
I understand.
Meaning the fact that they did an expansion without permission, they sort of ended up with permission when the planning department accepted their withdrawal, right? But having done so, the things they're doing with that is creating the nuisance.
But what my point
The
being
expansion is an illustration of their disregard.
Right.
Correct.
And lack of enforcement.
Correct.
And so, and
Yes,
that's where I was leading to, the fact that there's no enforcement being done on any of these issues.
But
So where does that come into? I know.
it's physically expanded onto those two parcels
Mhm.
and just put the luxury vehicles in the new parking lot and just created a larger dispatch and more views for employment in the building and kept the lot on gauge and didn't have all these extra trucks and didn't have all the mean, in other words, the expansion in and of itself is the trigger, but not the full problem, because that's not what's creating the new,
But I
physical.
I don't think you can use it now that Gage is gone. Gage is gone. There's nothing you can do about it if it's gone.
I do not
So-
know if it's gone. I do know. The thing is, last time I looked on Google Street View, it still said Wilshire Toe. So I don't know if Gage is fully gone or if they're using it as well.
Better convenience for them.
Well,
Two parcels, but not done anything with them, this wouldn't be an issue. What's
Correct.
the issue is they're using those two parcels, and this is, the whole thing is a flagrant violation of terms that they were supposed to be adhering to in the first place. So we're blowing the whistle
Right.
and we're saying no, and
Right.
you know, dear zoning administrator, get off your butt and do something about this. And we're asking for you to revoke a conditional use permit. If Wilshire Toe decides, oh, sorry, we'll start complying with it, fine, whatever. But
you're gonna have to prove
Okay.
what compliance looks like. I mean, if
right,
you
yeah, that's why we're gonna go through the process of documenting all of that. I need a week to do that.
I just got a quick question.
Sure.
If
I know
anybody
we need to
knows,
go.
yeah, you all know more whole city stuff. Is the fact that they are basically providing, that's quote unquote, a service for the city. Is that part of why we are having such lax enforcement in this whole situation?
Okay, and I see Donna has her hand up. I'm going to answer the question, and with 40 years of going to
Well,
hear.
that's what I'm saying. I'm just asking.
So in the hearing that was 1984 or 85, around then, they were providing high paid jobs, which nobody else was providing. Wasn't really a number, you know, wasn't a lot of jobs, but they're well paid jobs. So the economic aspect since the 80s was considered very important. So that's what the gist of the hearings were. Later on, it was that they had agreed to move, so we're gonna give them some more time. And then they did move, so we're gonna give them even more time. But the thing is, here they are back again. And everything has changed except the way they operate. So they're now operating the same way they operated in the 1980s, before there were any conditions imposed on them. But what surrounds them is a neighborhood that has changed. One of the things that was mentioned in the 2016 determination letter in the findings is that, gosh, the neighborhood has really improved, and yet we don't have a lot of complaints, so it must be okay. But see, by then they were operating at a gauge. And so it kind of was okay, except for you and Peggy's and Greg, who are directly behind the main thing, but we didn't have all the rest of this because that part of the operation was not in our community. So of course there were no complaints at that point. Donna, and then Steve, and then we really got to vote.
My point, when you said no complaints, I'm wondering how many they're getting. Code enforcement, the council office, is anyone constantly complaining? Those things are important for later on. Secondly, has anyone from the council office been called in to document what's going on? Because when the other part happens, you do need the backup of the council District 10. That's my comment.
Yes, thank you, Donna. There was discussion with Council District 10 and the board earlier this month on this topic. Not the strategy of asking for a revocation hearing or, you know, that, but there was
But it did
discussion.
come up.
Yeah, and it didn't come up by me, came up by Western Heights folks and others. Steve.
I want to directly address Ed's question. Providing a city service does not make you less responsible for following city rules. It makes you more responsible for following city rules.
It should.
If they are a vendor of the city of Los Angeles, they are responsible for following all those rules to a T. If they're in violation of those, the city should not be defending them.
Okay, Laura's got her hand up. So I would suggest. Huh?
Should,
Oh, I would
I
suggest,
said I called the question.
yes,
Yeah.
I've just asked, I would suggest that this letter be addressed to the zoning administrator, but copied to the police commission. Because the police commission is the entity that gives the license. If they don't have a license, they lose their conditional use permit, just by the way. So they cannot have just a basic towing operation there. Okay, Steve called the question, Teresa raised her hand.
I
Okay,
just want to concur with what you said about the police commission, Laura. And I have spoken to that commission when those trees were taken down downtown, when that guy, the homeless guy, cut down the trees, and they
Right.
were very responsive. So if it comes to that, I or somebody can go on behalf of the neighborhood council and speak at the commission and tell them the problems that we're having. And they are responsive to that. If you can deal with all of the crazies that show up that hate the police, but
Yeah.
but if you speak, if you're able to speak, they are very responsive.
I've been to one of those. It was quite an adventure.
Okay then, all right, Steve called the question. We do not do BACs or roll call votes here, so everyone who is present is a stakeholder. So you may vote. If you would prefer not to vote, that's okay too. So all in favor of the motion, which is to recommend the letter, draft of which is in our Google Drive, as with the suggested amendments, to recommend that the UNNC governing board adopt that letter. All in favor, raise their hand, please. Either here in the room or there on the screen. So motion clearly passes with several non-voters. Is there any opposition that would like to be recorded? I guess I should say everybody who said yes, take down their hands. And then if there's any opposition, please raise your hand. Okay, motion passes. Okay. Follow up to previous cases, ENS, old business, discussion and possible action. One thing I know is that there is an update regarding SB 79. That was our ghost making his or her
Wanted his
presence
freedom.
known here in the room. Those of us who seem to subscribe to these emails got an email today the other day. With an update from SB 79. The key thing is that on May 14, the Planning Commission did vote to more or less accept the recommendations of the Planning Department regarding how they're going to implement and or defer pieces of SB 79. So SB 79 is the state law that's going to require, that does require significant increases in zoning capacity near the train stations. And to remind everybody who's not totally up to date, many of the train stations that are on the map are train stations that are on a future construction list, not necessarily open in the present or under construction now. So where that affects us primarily is the Crenshaw K-line northern expansion. There's a station on the map at Adams and Crenshaw. So, but this is throughout the city. So in any case, they accepted the what am I trying to say? They accepted the recommendations and they basically, I'm not going to keep the share going because it's the links may be live. If you go into our agenda packets, you could go look at some of this stuff. There had been a recommendation from the planning department that was rejected, and that was a recommendation just on a citywide basis, change the rear yard setbacks, required backyards, in other words, from 15 feet down to 4 feet as a requirement. And obviously that led to a lot of testimony. And the planning commission is now recommending 8 feet set required backyards, still not the 15 that we've enjoyed for a century, literally a century. I don't know, Teresa, has CPAC talked about this at all? You know,
Yes, Laura, we actually just submitted a letter. It was in the file yesterday, I guess. So we obviously oppose it for many reasons, but yes, the setback is one of the things that we discussed.
right, so I'll explain it. CPAC, I can't even remember what CPAC stands
CFAC,
for.
it's CFAC,
CFAC.
Community Forest Advisory Committee.
Right, so even with an 8-foot backyard, it'd be really hard to plant significant trees with canopies. Because the canopy would now be hitting a building and that can't happen, you won't get insurance. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it's just not significant. In terms of where this is gonna be implemented now and where it's deferred, at least for a couple of years. HPOZs are deferred. Low opportunity areas are deferred until the year 2030. The city is trying to buy time because the other option the city has is to somehow rezone the entire city such that the density that SB 79 would otherwise provide could be provided in better locations. I'm probably saying that wrong. I don't see how the city planning department's gonna get that done in 3 years anyway. So in the meantime, they're not deferring high opportunity neighborhoods in West LA and the Valley. And unless there's HPOZ involved, which probably isn't, or a hillside that's fire prone. You know, in other words, there's other exceptions. Stephen, did I capture all of that? You think? It's hard to, it's very confusing.
I found the document to be impenetrable.
But did you have your AI helper try to read it for you?
I don't find AI very helpful.
I'm joking.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
joking.
Yeah,
Because I don't know that AI could decipher it either.
I couldn't even understand if the HPOZ exemption was still in play because it looked like it may not be.
Well, apparently it was, because that seemed to be the answer that Blair wrote to me that I forwarded to you. That
But I'm not sure what it says. That's the problem. It's written in such a opaque way. I can't make heads or tails of it. And the other people I communicated who've been more informed than I am, they were finding it very difficult going.
Right. So the other decision that was made that seems dismaying to me, even though it doesn't affect me, one of the council members, Nazarian, I think, had strongly suggested when this went to Plum, then the planning commission is going back to Plum, had strongly stated that he wanted the planning department to notify every property owner who are within each of those many SB 79 circles that their zoning will be changed. And they got rejected because they said it's too expensive to do that. And I'm thinking it's gonna be awfully expensive if somebody sues for lack of notification. I mean, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, but that's a later budget. If you get sued, that's a future budget. That's not the current budget.
Yeah, I guess so.
And it went to Nazarian's request, as I recall, went to the budget committee, and the budget committee decided they didn't want to fund it.
Well, the planning commission also decided they didn't want to fund it, but they didn't impose it. I just think it's crazy because honestly, whenever they've done plan updates, etc., you get a postcard if you're gonna change your zoning.
It's undemocratic, and it totally lacks transparency.
Right. Okay. So there's the answer. Not democratic, lacks transparency. I don't have any other SB 79 updates, and I'm not sure I have any other previous cases updates. Does anyone else? Teresa, is this your letter or is this the whole freaking document?
No, that's the CFAC letter, which opposes the 4-foot setback, blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other updates to any other anything? Oh, good.
I see it.
I Sun Min.
I'm just wondering if you guys have tried Perplexity to see if that might be helpful.
What is that?
It's a website,
Perplexity.
AI website, Perplexity,
To run the gobbledygook through and see if it has.
SB 79.
All right. Yeah, well, it's this letter that we're trying to decipher, this planning commission determination letter. Which I did not attempt to upload to any agenda. I mean, it was so also too big of a file. So anyway, but you can get to it on the link. Hopefully it's a live link. And if it's not, just send me an email and I will try and get it to you. All right. If there's nothing else, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Laura. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you for the new people.